I am trying to make sure that this is as it should be, where I can present in full screen. We did it. Welcome, everyone. This is Anne. Welcome to my masterclass, which I named Rewrite Your Script. By healing the past, begin to be on target with living your purpose and to experience inner peace. This is a huge promise for 75 minutes, but I will do the best I can. First, as I mentioned, we want to keep confidentiality, and for the most part, since the recording will be mostly on the screen, um, your names might be mentioned as Doug shares what you share in the chat. He doesn't have to name you as a reminder to him. Let me introduce my co-host, Doug, who is my partner, who will help me keep order by monitoring the chat. There are only so many things I can do. And I notice that when I try to multitask, some things get shortchanged. All right. So to begin with, I want to invite you to create a sacred space. You don't have to participate. You can just listen and be curious. But for those who will participate, I want you to see yourself in your brain and then move your attention from your brain down to your physical heart. That's step one. Keep your focus on that physical heart throughout this short exercise. Step two, the breath. The breath that is key to so much in terms of the depth of you. Everything that I've learned about breath, and there's always more to learn about breath. For now, begin to breathe. Begin with me, 4 breaths in, 6, not 4, breath, 4 beats in, 6 beats out. Breathe again, 4, breathe out. Even imagine yourself breathing from your heart. 4 breaths in and 6 breaths out, 6 in. As you see, I'm not following a script. So keep the slower pace of breathing throughout this process. 4 in, 6 out. The next step is moving to gratitude. One new teacher of mine, Greg Braden, has reminded us that we're the only sentient beings on the planet who can choose an emotion. So we're going to choose gratitude, saying thank you, feeling thank you. I am going to be in this thank you mode, and you join me in the way you can for a gathering. For all of you where this piqued your interest, for all of you who are willing to learn, I thank you. I thank you for your curiosity, your willingness to show up, I thank you for listening to your heart because it's not your brain that said, there's something here for you, but it was an urging of the heart, I hope. And this process of being connected to your heart, breathing from your heart, and focusing on gratitude. Be grateful that you can breathe. Be grateful for the internet and technology that we can connect all around the world. I'm grateful. I'm getting to know people all around the world and the stories and the histories I've learned. I am enriched by my connections. I am grateful. And through this process in this class, I have the opportunity, and you do too, for more connections. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. I'm grateful, especially to the night skies. I love the stars. I'm grateful for the roses and blossoms that greet me on my walk each day. There is so much to be grateful for. And as Ruby said, when you clothe yourself in the cloak of gratitude, it fills every corner of your heart. Okay. Through this process, somewhat shortchanged, we have made a brain heart connection that comes from heart math. And I'll say a little bit more later. Thank you for participating, those who did. All right. Introductions. I need to introduce Doug, who is doing my co-hosting, and who will be attentive to the chat responses because after a while, I can't see over 99 entries unless I open up the chat completely. So he will be attending, being my monitor and intermediary for those. And I'm very grateful that he is here to do that. Now, my official bio goes something like this. I graduated with my PhD in 1981 when I was at the University of Berkeley. I was in a postgraduate post-fellowship position in the Department of Psychiatry. After that, I was hired by the Counseling Center and began my work as a full-time clinician there. And that was over 40 years ago. So I have had plenty of experience with clients. And then since I retired in my early 50s, I started exploring numerous programs like Psyche, matrix energetics, neurological repatterning, and on and on. I didn't know exactly why I was doing it, but when I get to my real story, that's what I did. So I'm well credentialed. I have a credential from the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, which was awarded over 20 years ago. 4 years studying there. So that's my official bio. Oh, and by the way, Doug often reminds me I am an author. I am an author of a book called Listening to the Cries of Your Heart, which will be part of my real story. Okay, what is my real story behind the surface? On the outside, I knew how to be pleasant, appropriate, approachable, successful when I was a professional. There seemed to be nothing wrong with me. And why not? I grew up in a family of Stoics. My Japanese American heritage, my parents were the model of Stoicism. And what I mean by that in particular is that you ride over your emotions. You don't let them get to you. You don't even feel them for the most part. So I was uninformed and untouched for the most part by my emotions, my heart. And that allowed me to be more or less undisturbed, except for a few key things. I experienced my father, normally really held together, explode 3 times when I was in his presence. I was the only one. And the one time where I was the only one there at fault was I was doing some work on the living room, on the living room coffee table, which was on a brand new wool rug. He warned me, be careful. And I thought, okay, be careful. And of course, I spilled the India ink, which spilled in the rug. He picked up that bottle and threw it across the room. He was furious. I was so startled, I was shocked. I didn't even react to it. And that is how I handled emotions. When they exploded around me, or if anything came close to it in myself, I numbed out. I didn't feel it. Consequently, my whole adult life until 11 years ago, I was a stoic, numb. 6 years into my first marriage, my husband betrayed me by declaring an open marriage, which meant he gave himself permission to have affairs with his students. For 24 hours, I was furious. I was angry, but only for 24 hours because he reminded me that I wasn't rational. And since rationality was how I was living through my intellect, that turned me off completely. I said, oh, yes, that wasn't rational. So I cut off my heart and I became unconscious even more, not only to my heart, but to life in general. And that's how I dealt with anger. Anytime I didn't have my anger, I became more unconscious. But I was successful and pleasant and polite on the outside. Nothing was wrong with me. 11 years ago, intuition spoke to me. I was writing a chapter in a book. I can see myself on the sofa with pen and pad. And the voice said, or the words came, listen to the cries of your heart. I was stunned, but I obeyed. I started writing and writing and writing. I began to listen to the cries of my heart to begin my healing of my heart. And that chapter became a book, and that's the end of that story. But I heard intuition in an unequivocal way that moment. 5 years later, in the middle of an online course, again, I heard, you do this, which was to take this course called MAP, Make Anything Possible, where we learn to train the subconscious. And that you're going to learn in the third portion of this presentation. So healing my own heart. So no longer was I out of touch with my feelings, especially my anger. I began to recover my inner world. And I began to recover my consciousness, my awareness, and through MAP, healing my childhood wounds, I have moved so far. So no longer am I content to be small, but for example, I am now working on classes that are teaching me how to awaken my divinity. And that is the path I want to talk about. So that's my story. Now it's time for you to participate. You all know where your chat is at the bottom of your screen. Say yes in the chat if you feel that the success that you know and have achieved doesn't somehow measure up to what you expected. We're getting yeses. I can see
Yes,
the
we're
numbers
getting a
go.
number of yeses.
Beautiful. You're in the right
Then
space with me.
up to 10. Oh, 11, 12, 13.
Yay! Wonderful. Thank you. Second, how many of you know you had childhood wounds? Well, the numbers are coming in.
Yes.
Yes.
We're up to 14, 16.
Yay. Those of you who are saying yes, we're in the right classroom. Wonderful. Third, say yes in the chat if you are curious about your hidden superpower, which, in my view, is an enhanced, trained um, subconscious. Yay! Getting
Yeah.
the yeses. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Finally, say yes in the chat if you will listen with an open mind, your intuition, and your curiosity. Wonderful. We have now moved beyond 99, and Doug will have to report to me what's happening there. Okay. Welcome for those of you who just entered in the last few seconds or minutes. Please write in the chat where you're from. And if your name isn't evident in the chat, please let us know who you are. This is the structure for today. Part 1, Section 1, what are your struggles? 2, what are the scripts? What are the patterns that you are running? And 3, healing your inner child, which is about healing the source that created the patterns so that you can release them. Okay. Section 1. Where are you? We're going to take a few minutes now for you to be attentive by shining the light of awareness to articulate, say, what, where you are now in terms of your personal inner world. For example, do you need clarity or a direction instead of feeling confused? Do you need a sole purpose versus having a career? So take at least a minute now. That's why your pen and pad were encouraged. Take the time now and say, where am I now? What is it that I need? What is it why have I come here? What am I looking for? I'll call you back in a minute. our self-reflection pieces won't be very long, but it's a beginning. And you can certainly take these questions and spend some time journaling on them. I should have repeated before I ask these questions to connect with your heart. What does your heart say? What is it that you need? What is it that you long for? What's missing? So now,
Do you want me to let you know what some of the
yes,
responses
please.
are?
I was just going to say, please, in a few words, share what you learned.
Um, uh, Sarah says she lacks self-confidence and she has a big fear of failure, and those things are blocking her from moving forward.
Yes.
Ethan says clarity, resolution, maybe catharsis. Lisa says directions for sure. Audra says, how should I organize my book? Janae says, direction, clarity, removal of fear and limitation. Isabella wants deep connection. Elvira says she feels unsuccessful in spite of working for 30 years.
Yes. Yes.
Lay says finding purpose.
Yes. So the person who said something about writing a book, there are different ways of moving in any kind of creativity. And there are all the hints from writing groups and writers about how to do this. My way is to connect with your intuition, connect to your inner wisdom of what to write without any preconceived idea of how it will be organized, how it would turn out, or how it starts, how it would start. It's kind of like sitting down and say, I'm going to write the book. I'm going to write my introduction and just write it without any sense of it has to be perfect. Every word you write has to be perfect. No, play with it. Play with it. Play with your intuition. Um, Random ideas, include them, play with it, gather things, and so forth. So, broaden, in other words, how you think now about how you're supposed to start. And that's basically my message about throughout this course is the um, template that we carry around is there's a proper right way to do things, like a career or this job. You move into it, you know the responsibilities are, you do it. But then you realize this doesn't feel very fulfilling, as someone else says after 30 years. So it's because of these patterns that we've been subconsciously obeying, and we need to rattle that cage so that our creativity can fall out, our imagination can fall out, and our intuition can expand. So then we're in a new field of infinite possibilities. And how we do this is the beginning of seeing the patterns that brought us to where we are, what we have to release. And I'll talk about how we do that. And then we have freedom. Anything else about what they learned from that reflection? Doug?
From the reflection of intuition.
Oh, no, no, anything they said about,
Oh, yes. There's uh, Nicole said she wants to understand past experiences. Let me see if I can get the exact words. Um, Bear with me. My mouse is not working properly. Uh, Maria says, once I understand the past family dysfunction, how do I move forward from it? Set myself free from it.
Yep.
Lacking clarity and direction. We have a number of writers in the group that are having similar issues.
Okay, so if I haven't said enough that makes sense to you by the end of this, hang in there and we'll talk, okay, about that.
And we have Anna who says she has gifts as a healer and sentient empath, and she has beautiful strength as dancer singer, but it lacked direction to self-guide into my full, authentic professional expression.
Right, wonderful. Yes. Um, One of the things about the patterns, which I'll explain more, they arose when you were hurt young in life. They are survival patterns and they intend to keep you safe. And if you want to venture forth to create your own new thing, the trauma parts won't let you because it's not safe to do. And that's why you need to heal these early childhood wounds, because then you can be free. That's my short answer to that question. Thank you, Doug, and thank you for respondent. So this is what I asked for the message. Okay, I've been stressing the heart ever since we started, and this is the reason. When I do work with clients, I find that their thinking mind is what is dominating our conversation. The thinking mind is the mind that analyzes, uses logic. It takes things apart. It doesn't bring together. It doesn't have the kind of holistic grasp, the bigger perspective. And yet, our society is totally supported by the thinking mind and the science bias culture, right? All the news, all the fact based reports that we need or what we ask for, the thinking mind wants that kind of answer. So there's this um, huge bias toward the thinking mind, which has closed off our hearts. And when you think about it, since your heart was hurt so early on, it's not so easy to turn to that hurt heart. Rather, like I did, I closed off from it. And what was left? My intellect, my thinking mind, which dominated my life, my whole life until 11 years ago. And even still, when I'm confronted with an issue or problem, I probably try and say, how can I figure this out? No, figuring it out is not the answer for me. I need to be quiet and allow some wisdom to emerge to face difficulties and problems. So that's basically my little speech about why you need to connect with your heart. To get any kind of verification whether I'm making a speech to the pulpit or whatever, the choir, please say yes in the chat. If you don't deal well with the emotions of anger, fear, or sadness, you are uncomfortable with any or all of these feelings. Doug?
I was responding to somebody. No answers yet.
Hmm. No yeses.
Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. Wrong screen. Yes, we have a number of yeses.
Okay. Say yes in the chat if you detect that it's your mind always working, trying to figure things out, have something make sense to fix. Do you rely on your mind? Could we have yeses on the chat in the chat?
Yes, we have a
Yes.
large number of yeses.
Good. Thank you. And then finally, say yes in the chat if you see yourself judging, criticizing yourself and others, saying, they're wrong, I'm right, this position is right, they're wrong, judging, or criticizing. This was lacking. They should have done more. Any kind of judging or criticizing. That's the function of the intellect. How many can see that you do this a lot?
Again, there's a large number of yeses, Anne.
Thank you. All right. I usually spend much of a class like this doing an emotional reset. But for this portion of presentation, I am just making the recommendation that just as you took the time to listen to the messages from your heart in the first self-reflective pieces, you spend time every day. Sit down and saying, okay, what does my heart say about what I've been going through? 10 minutes, 5 minutes, listen to your heart. Second, we want to balance the two brains, and this is the elaboration of the heart math science that I mentioned before in our beginning exercise. You have two brains. You have the brain up in your head, and you have a brain that is in your heart. They have recorded and can show you evidence of all the neuronal network that is in the top part of your heart. Your brain has a heart too. And that's beautiful because we can connect to that brain and we can connect the brain in the head with the brain in the heart and get the richness of both brains. Finally, you can do an emotional reset through your heart, aligning with your heart when you do your inner child work. So, as we move into the section where I talk about your inner child, you will see that your inner child is using the emotions to communicate, to let you know how he or she is hurting, needs your attention. And when you do the inner child work, you begin to heal your heart. That's the emotional reset um, portion of this presentation. Okay, we're not in the heart of what I promised today about patterns. I will be describing 10 patterns that were created or adopted by your inner child. Now, as a kind of review about inner child work, no one escaped being neglected, abused, rejected, or having their needs not seen or unmet because your parents were human. Your parents couldn't be there 24/7 attending to your needs. So you may have been in your crib, distressed and crying because you were hungry, or you were wet, or you needed comfort. And because you didn't know any time, 5 seconds, 10 seconds felt like forever. And you felt that there was nobody there that um, You were rejected. You were unimportant. So beliefs about yourself and the world were created. Similarly, patterns or strategies to survive were created as well. The heart of this are childhood wounds of neglect, abuse, rejection, betrayal, where needs were unseen and unmet. So some impressions or beliefs created were, I'm not good enough. I'm not important. I'm not deserving. I'm alone. No one was here. I can't trust anyone to be here for me, and similar beliefs. Love is scarce. I didn't get my portion. There are many beliefs and impressions that were imprinted on you when you were hurt in childhood. We're not spending time on these today, but rather patterns and strategies were created. And I'm getting there before I intended to. So, these patterns and strategies are survival patterns. When trauma parts were created by yourself to make it through, it was all about survival. It was defensive. It was to protect you. So, these patterns that I'm going to discuss are limited in that they help you survive. So identifying them is a way of saying, yes, I use this, of course, and they help you survive. We can be grateful for that. But unfortunately, because they're in your subconscious, you can't pluck them out once you see them, toss them out, and be free. So I'm going to articulate 10 of these patterns so you really get a sense of what they are. And they're only those that I quickly put together. There are many more patterns. So the inner child work that I am involved in is identifying beliefs, identifying patterns, and using your trained subconscious to neutralize and release them to free yourself from the limitations imposed. So, are you ready? We're going to start with pattern one. Say yes in the chat if you begin to identify being the people pleaser. For example, you agree to do extra work or say yes to favors even when you're exhausted or you don't want to. You can't help but say yes. You're the constant volunteer. So I hope I will begin to see yes in the chat.
You're gonna see a lot of yeses.
Yes.
Teresa actually says life feels like a performance.
Ah, okay. We will get to that aspect as well. But it is true that I am a people pleaser, you know. I get along with people. And the reason why I get along with people is that I don't, I'm not rude. I don't um, uh, uh, interrupt them in the middle of their conversation. I don't argue with them. I don't talk politics. I don't talk religion because it's hard to be a people pleaser unless you agree to whatever that person says. And then you feel the drawback because the drawback is you you begin to feel resentful. You begin to lose touch with your own needs. You begin to feel invisible, and that doesn't feel good. The resentment is a quiet anger. You're letting somebody else have all the airtime, all the attention. And the inner child wants attention. He wants to be seen and heard, understood. But when you're allowing everyone else to have the scene,
Yeah, I'd like to point out that sometimes people please because they don't want people to be angry with them.
right, exactly. So you can, in spending time looking at your people pleasing and realize there are benefits, but the drawbacks are many. And burnout is a huge one because you're paying attention to what other people need and you're forgetting your own needs. It's so easy to do. All right, that's one. Say yes in the chat if you see a perfectionist in you. You spend hours, for example, editing an email, a message, a presentation, fearing even small mistakes. I didn't see myself as a perfectionist for the longest time, but I knew what making mistakes were. That one, when I made a mistake, it struck a chord. It uh, paralyzed me when I realized I might have made a mistake. That's how huge this perfectionist energy was in me. I remember being with a client years ago, and as we were talking about ending, he said to me, I get it. You are afraid that you failed me. And that was the truth. That's why I was talking so much. I was apologizing in some obscure way because I felt I had failed him. I had made mistakes. So, perfectionist is one way of seeing it, but it doesn't hide all the ways that perfectionists show up. You can't ever let anything that a piece of paper, a poem, a book, or anything, a paragraph, a chapter, you can't let it go because it's not perfect yet. You don't say it's not perfect yet. You just fear it could be better. How about that? I could be better. You're here in this master class because you have the perfectionist part that says, I can do better. I can be better. So while there is a good motive in being a perfectionist, the pressure is what is the drawback because it robs you of joy, spontaneity, and rest. You don't give yourself breaks. You can't be spontaneous if you're constantly under pressure. I was driving to an appointment yesterday, and there was this huge detour I had to take in a neighborhood I wasn't familiar with. I went to dead ends upon dead ends until I finally found my way out, showed up 7 minutes late, and I knew I was going to be late. And I could say, I'll just do the best I can. Nothing awful is going to happen. But no, the pressure of having to do it right, show up on time, was still there. So when I sat, lay down on the couch for my body worker, I told him, I still feel the pressure of pushing myself, even if I knew I could do nothing to change it, that pressure was there. So I let go of more and more of the perfectionist. I'm a work in progress. And You'll find you may be needing to do that too.
This topic resonated with a large number of people.
That's why you're here. You want to be better. Third, the overachiever. This is where you measure your worth by productivity and accomplishments, projects done, awards won. Um, you rack up uh, successes in your workplace. The drawback is when you're an overachiever, nothing you do feels enough. You can sense that the not good enough belief lies at the heart of this. You need to be successful. You need to overachieve because the belief of not being good enough is at the heart of it. So you adopted the pattern of overachieving, somehow trying to fill that hole of never feeling good enough. So you're seeking external validation, but the emptiness, it's still there because what is empty cannot be filled by what you can amass outside. How many of you see yourself in being an overachiever? One student, client of mine in my group, has finished two master's degrees and started three PhDs. That's how much of an overachiever she is, which happily she has stopped doing and become creative instead, because that feeds her heart. So, how many of you recognize that you've used achievement, external validation, for to fill the emptiness in your heart? Any yeses about overachieving?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And one, Jay Tun says it makes them very competitive.
Yes. And competitive means to me, not that competitive suggests to me that um, you're not paying attention to the people around you, and you might um, even borrow some of the brilliant ideas they have in seed because you can see them. And since you're competitive, you might grab it, develop it, and claim it as your own. No, that's getting into the dark part of that. Anyway, I there are many ways you can find of overachieving. Whoever is doing better, you can do better. Somebody has a bestseller, you can write two bestsellers. So I wonder whether all the best-selling authors have this overachieving um, aspect in their six repertoire. I don't think J.K. Tolkien did because I think she birthed the whole thing all at once. Anyway, so anyone owning up to being an overachiever?
You got it, yeah.
Okay. Moving on, the caretaker. You step in to fix everyone's problems, family, colleagues, friends, believing their happiness depends on you. You don't consciously say their happiness depends on me, but subconsciously you believe that unless you step in and caretake, they're going to be unhappy. Unless you do something, it's vital that you have this role, that you do it. In my groups and among my clientele, I, I find teachers, health professionals, nurses, doctors, because they have put into their profession this natural tendency to want to help, caretake. And the drawback to this is you have one-sided relationship where you're doing all the caretaking. You overextend yourself and your own needs, you're too busy taking care of others. And unknowing, you might begin to become resentful. And if your fatigue isn't evident, it soon becomes evident. You become exhausted.
Or in as my role as a doctor, I've noticed that people that are in health professions often get sick themselves.
Exactly. So, this is one thing I learned in healing school, which I constantly refer to. Your body is the densest expression of yourself. And what you don't pay attention to in the emotional level, spiritual level, cognitive area, psychological area, when you don't pay attention, it ends up as disease or even injury to the body. So if Lawrence LaShawn wrote a book, oh, maybe 20, 30 years ago, where his clients were cancer, women with cancer. And the theme of it was learning how these women gave over their lives to their loved ones, to their family. And in one story that I remember well, is a person who was a writer, musician, or artist, and her husband was in a similar field. She was successful, but her husband wasn't. So she held herself back, and this is what created the cancer. And when it was pointed out to her, she says, "No, I am not going to own and flourish in my gifts." And she died from her cancer. Whereas another woman whose love was opera, after she saw what she was doing, she began to listen to opera, attend operas, and so forth, rather than being fixed on her family. So, when your needs go unmet, the resentment shows up in your body, the fatigue shows up, irritable bowel, autoimmune diseases, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. I may be repeating myself. In any case, these may all be signs of your being a caretaker. How many of you recognize in part, or you do that a lot? How many of you are in service professions, officially or not? Do you have yeses, Doug?
Well, there's plenty of yeses, and a lot of people have great insight into it. Also, the negative consequences of caretaking. And I think that you hit the nail on the head. The caretaking is a problem when it's unbalanced, when there's not any care that or self-care that the person is giving to themselves. And that's a big thing with burnout. If you're not giving care to yourself, you're more likely to get burned out.
Absolutely. And I realized that I have 12 minutes left to get through the rest of this and to talk about the subconscious. So I'm going to zip through and not be so detailed. Say yes in the chat if you recognize yourself as a lone warrior, super self-reliant. You rarely ask for help, believing you must handle everything alone. Do you recognize this about yourself? That it you feel it depends on you and you're going to do it. You don't have to ask for help. And the drawback is this independence becomes isolation. You become unconnected to those around you. So you miss out on emotional support, deeper intimacy, so that you work on burdens together. They can be shared. But this lone warrior pattern about super self-reliant is based on your lack of trust. You believe you're the only one who could do it well. So you avoid teamwork. You hate it. So how many of you recognize that you might be super self-reliant? Not only do you miss on emotional support and intimacy, you're carrying the burden all by yourself. It's exhausting.
There's a large number of yeses.
Okay, next.
Again, some people will recognize the consequences of that it's paid in their life.
Thank you. Six, the controller. You plan every detail and struggle to delegate because you feel others will disappoint or create chaos. The controller wants order and will create order and wants you to create order. And you're so fixated on order that you forget that there are people involved. So relationships suffer because you're right. You want order or you need to be in control. No spontaneity, very little room for trust. So, how many of you can see in some form that you may be a controller, planning details? And you know what? What this does ultimately in the big scheme of things is you don't trust God, Spirit, the universe to be supportive of your life purpose. So you're the one who have been in charge, becoming impatient and plan and want to create how it's going to happen. So that's another drawback to being the controller. Are we getting any admissions?
Yeah, we're getting quite a number. And I also have to mention that you can control externally, but a lot of people control internally. They control their feelings, they control their actions. So they're like, put themselves
Right.
in a straitjacket.
Right. We're going to come to that, Doug. You haven't seen my list. The seventh one is the workaholic. You measure your worth by productivity and rarely rest. It kind of borrows on some of the others. So you are busy, busy, busy. And you think that by busy and producing and busy, you don't see that some things can be let go, some things aren't valued. And mostly what you need to pay attention to are your relationship and your inner life. So all the doing creates burnout. You don't have joy, and success feels hollow. Don't you love these pictures I found? Okay, so any admission to being a workaholic? Doug,
Yes, some are starting to come
come
in
in.
now.
Yeah, I'm sorry for not being able to elaborate. And I'm definitely going to go over.
But you're overachieving. Sorry.
Okay. Am I overachieving? Okay. I want to be complete. I don't want to get to 10. This is the performer, which is a new one for me in this list. The example is you use charm, humor, achievement to win approval to avoid rejection. The important thing is this, you feel you have to put on a show. Um, it doesn't give you space for your authentic self. Your authentic self, yes, can sometimes show up with humor, but the charm, The entertainment value isn't there when you show up with your authentic self. Because when your authentic self shows up, there is no performance. What you fear is if you don't perform, the emptiness and loneliness behind the polished exterior is what's going to show up. So you can see how protective this is. You try to hide your vulnerable parts. So you play a role. You become a comedian. You become a storyteller. And if you know your place and what you're doing, that's one thing. But when it happens unconsciously, you are ignoring your authentic self. Can anyone see the performer in them?
Yes, there's,
Okay, here is where Doug jumped ahead and talked about the avoider. It's the emotional distance with which you appear in the world. You don't want to be involved with feelings or difficult conversations because you want a surface peace. You want to not feel uncomfortable, the avoider of feelings. The emotional distance prevents genuine connection. I don't know how you can have intimacy or genuine connection if you aren't comfortable with your feelings and those of someone else that you're with. Because then all the untold feelings and stories come out, and people get to know each other at a deeper level. But when you're uncomfortable and don't go there, you don't have that kind of opportunity to come from your deeper self to meet another, both coming from compassion, understanding, maybe empathy, sharing that space of vulnerability. And if you don't do that, life feels pretty flat. Every day, every person is like every day, yesterday, and the day before. No surprises. Anyone identifying aspects of the avoider in
yes.
as a pattern? Thank you.
And, addictions sometimes play a role here too.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Whether it's overeating, binge shopping, or substances.
Exactly. Thank you very much for bringing that up. The pattern of avoider certainly can be expressed um, with addictions in whatever form it takes, be it cigarettes, drinking, shopping, um, TikToking, social media, all these sorts of things to keep you distracted. Finally, we have something, the hyper responsible caretaker. So it builds on the caretaker before, but it's kind of the superhero caretaker where you unconsciously are driven by taking on other people's burdens wherever they are. The homeless people on the street, some person who has a bedridden partner, all of this, you take it on. And if you're not realize what you're doing, being a hyper responsible caretaker, you become more and more exhausted. And the weight of it crowds out your awareness of your own needs. You become depleted, angry. All right. Now, this is time for you to reflect. I'll give you a minute to reflect, and I haven't even gotten to the third section. Oh my. Well, here we go. I'll give you a minute for you to list, in terms of numbers, how many of these do you see in your life? Can you list the 3 top patterns you have? How long are you willing to pay the cost of this? Will people share how many of these 10 they see in their lives? Can you list the top 3 that you have? And finally, how long are you willing to pay the cost? You don't have to answer all of these questions, just one of them will do. And Doug will let me know what you're saying.
Well, Janae says the perfectionist, the caretaker, the overachiever. She
Okay.
says, I'm over it.
Okay. Any more numbers?
Caretaker, controller, people pleaser from Elvira.
You can interrupt me, Doug, as I move on.
Okay, I'll let you know if there's any others.
Yeah, this
So,
third section is healing your inner child, okay? In some sense, the most important section. No, not really.
Sai says they have all 10.
Okay, some work to be done here. The power of the subconscious. This iceberg represents the percentage of what is in the conscious mind and what's in the subconscious mind. 5% in the conscious mind, 95% in the subconscious. That means that in this moment, as you hear me speak, only 5% of it is conscious. What is in the subconscious is influencing everything in your life right in this moment. And what is in the subconscious mind? Core wounds and emotional imprints, limiting beliefs, conditioned responses and survival patterns, repressed emotions, unresolved memories, and internalized voices. You know, the internalized voices of the critic. You can hear your mom's voice or your dad's voice saying, stupid, or can't you do better than that? What's the matter with you? Things like that. Symbolic images and archetypes, which go beyond the scope today, but any symbol carries a lot of meaning, more universal meaning, and archetypes as well. And it carries the subconscious programs and scripts that we're talking about. So, unless we have access to the subconscious, all of this is there influencing your experience. So, whatever you don't have in your life that you want, all that you have for years and years, it's all because it's in your subconscious and you don't have access to it to change anything. For example, many programs, especially including inner child and personal development work, have you do affirmation, change your mindset from negative to positive, have stickers everywhere to say, think positive, believe that you're worth it and so forth around. And you have to look at them constantly, consciously, because it doesn't get into your subconscious until weeks later, perhaps. So much of the work remains at the conscious level. There are some, for example, my own inner child process that begins to move into the less conscious areas to have effective changes. But I can't talk about that today because I don't have the time. But I will talk about how you can use your subconscious for healing purposes. And what I want you to know is something called MAP, Make Anything Possible. It uses a trained subconscious to neutralize and release the pain of trauma, of all the childhood wounds, neutralize and release the limiting beliefs that keep you stuck, believing you're not deserving, not good enough, or that you're the mistake and that's the problem, or any of the persistent patterns that you've identified here. It's only by, from my view, a trained subconscious. Hypnotherapist uses the subconscious. And if you have a very experienced, wise hypnotherapist, they may be able to um, isolate and focus on the what you have to can release through hypnosis. But in our program called MAP, we use this trained subconscious in a global way to treat past lives, to treat the recycling of pain through the generations. We use it to treat attached spirits. The power of the subconscious is unlimited because guess what? The subconscious is you, a divine part of you. And as you move into this more and more, you recognize that it's one way of speaking of your divinity or your higher self in a comfortable way. But when you get comfortable enough, you are open to owning your subconscious as an expression of your divinity, and you are divine. Okay, so what does MAP do? It creates awareness. The subconscious brings light to what is hidden. So, in working with my clients, as they talk about things, more things show up. Some seemingly unrelated things, but they are related. So that when the superconscious is able to treat it all, they don't just treat a focused area, but the attending associated belief experiences. Like a person might remember, oh, when I was 5 years old, I remember my father calling me, you're stupid, you're stupid. So then she realizes why her intelligence has been an issue for her whole life. Second, superconscious works by neutralizing emotional charge and dissolves this energy by bringing in compassion and truth. What do I mean by this? The inner child triggers are when suddenly bursts of anger show up, or not even bursts of anger. You feel angry when somebody criticizes you. Or somebody brings something up, like Trump did something else, and that brought immediate fear because the inner child doesn't like change and a lack of safety. It gets triggered. So any current event that brings on anger, fear, or sadness is a sign of the inner child feeling unsafe, feeling a need for someone to recognize and be there for them. And the emotional charge, the triggers, superconscious can treat by helping the trauma parts release the bearing of all this intense trauma experienced when young and older, and release them so you're not carrying around huge amounts of intense anger, which can also be carried in the body as armor, energy that's not, is stuck and held in. Okay, the third is the superconscious is able to reprogram with truths such as the inner child begins to hear, I'm safe, I am enough, begins to live from that place. Finally, there is integration and wholeness so that there's emotional balance, inner peace, and a return to authenticity. Quick testimonials. This woman says, I feel so much better from 90 minutes yesterday than I have with years of therapy and deep personal work. I'm still in shock how quickly it works and how profound the change is. Next, Anne came into my life after illness like cancer, major loss like divorce and death of a dog, when I could barely function. In just weeks, she helped me find calm in chaos. And over months, I became happier than ever before. Thanks to MAP and Anne's support, I now live peacefully, grounded in my true self. She helped me reclaim my joy. Rumi, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. The barriers, from my point of view, are all of the trauma parts, all the patterns, all the beliefs that you create to protect yourself, and they need to be healed. So, when you work with the superconscious, you will know who you were before the plane. Because your essence is love. You came as spirit, but humanity exploded upon you with all of its fears, and you forgot who you were. And the work that I do, that we do, is for you to connect with your essence again. And when you do that, you are connected with your soul again and know the purpose. Some of you get inklings about your purpose with the gifts you have, the sensitivities that you have, your creativity, your intuition, your empathy, etc. That can bloom once these barriers are dealt with, so that your soul purpose just shines in your face and you can live from your heart, not your wounds. So say yes in the chat if you would like to release the patterns that create your adult script. Say yes in the chat if you see the advantage of having the power of the subconscious working for you. Hopefully, you're saying yes.
I'm seeing a lot of yeses to both statements.
Thank you. So, write in the chat an aha, an insight, a fresh in something that you have want to share. I love this perspective of looking at the trees this way. You know, trees communicate. They're all connected. through their root system. And I love when they connect like that when you look up and up to the that way. That is, I hope, part of your experience of this quick journey through Rewrite Your Script that I took you on, that you have a different perspective, that there is light. So please share with me, Doug.
Yeah, Maria says you don't realize how much the subconscious is operating in our everyday lives.
Yay.
Jana says, I want to learn more about MAP because all 10 resonated and I don't want to be controlled by them anymore. Anna says, nature always immediately healing.
Yes, yes, yes. And while that is true, we can't spend all of our time in nature, but the love in nature is what we need to cultivate in ourselves. All the power and connected of nature is all possible through our hearts, in ourselves.
You mentioned how the trees are all connected.
Yes,
People are all connected.
exactly. But we've forgotten that. We are one. We're a oneness. And the world makes us think that we're separate. And that's what we need to strive for, to be more and more see everyone as ourselves through empathy, compassion, forgiveness, gratitude, etc. So here's Lao Tzu. At the center of your being, you have the answer. You know who you are, and you know what you want. We need to be still and make sure that we can connect to the center of our being. So we are with our answers, and then we'll know that our answers are who we are. So let's chat. I would love to meet with you. I have time today, tomorrow, and I'm going to free up time on Saturday morning and Monday for breakthrough sessions where we can spend up to 45 minutes. You're talking about your situation and my coming up with possibilities of how what I know may help you move forward. So, Doug, have you gotten this in the chat?
I'm doing that right now, Ann.
Thank you. Thank you for your help all along. Thank you for those of you who have hung in here. I'm trying to see in terms of, yeah, most of you have stayed with me. I really appreciate. I'm going to have to make these classes 90 minutes long for sure, for 90 minutes of your time. Your comments, your participation. I look forward to meeting you. And I have a big smile on my face. I guess I can stop the recording now. So I am going to stop the screen share, which means everyone, oh yeah, we have that in the chat. There we are. Hi,
There are,
everybody.
there are a lot of notes of appreciation for your presentation today.
Oh,
Jana says, thank you for opening my eyes.
good, good. And hopefully opening your hearts as well. Oh, it's so good to see you. Sai,
Janae,
Shai, huh?
Janae said, always grateful, pretty lady. Pam said, mahalo.
Ah, yes, yes, yes. Hi, Ethan. Hi, Sai. Sai showed up yesterday when I was in my Zoom room. So,
Yeah,
Thankfully,
and
I
people
don't
are
think.
asking for another class too.
Well, since you're registered for this one, I will, you'll be notified for anything else that I offer. And the heart of it will be the inner child work. That's my stick. That's my entry to my one of my last spiritual teachers, Miranda McPherson, talked about the goal of the spiritual person as the undefended heart. We never talked about it in the Sangha meetings we had, but it struck me that that's the goal, an undefended heart. And the way I see it is the inner child with all of the patterns and beliefs created this wall around the heart to defend it. And the work that we do with the inner child work is to dissolve that so that there is more access to the heart. And with access to the heart and its wisdom, it allows for more of the bricks to come down. So the work that I do, I feel is spiritual work to get to the undefended heart. So where your natural wisdom lies. Do you know that we're here with all that we need? We just need to remember. So when you hear a word of wisdom, and maybe some came out of my mouth, you were reminded of something you already knew. And that's how it is to be in a place where you can remember more and more. In your creativity, you're touching upon some of that wisdom. So prize your creativity. You're playing in that field of limitless possibility. In your imagination, in listening to your intuition, same thing. You're expressing your divinity in that particular way. So that's how I feel about all the expressions of divinity we already have, that we don't acknowledge. And when we're grateful and can see it, it becomes bigger and bigger. So that becomes what our lives every day are like, and not the darkness. One final thing I want to say, every bit of darkness needs to be embraced. Any sign of the inner child needs to embrace, because there the universe has said, see this? Here is your classroom. Here's your opportunity to learn and grow. Don't turn away from it just because it looks dark. Just like Carl Jung's shadow. When you see people acting in ways that disturb you, it's because you hid something that they're embodying in your heart. And if you take the time to look at what that might be, I did this work with a client the other day, and she said, it's arrogance. I kind of sense people's arrogance, but I have my own arrogance. It has to do with intelligence. She's the one whose parents told her, you're stupid. How could you be so stupid? So intelligence became a place where she could begin to free all of her judgments and expressions of her intelligence, which she could somewhat own, but there's an aspect that she couldn't own because her parents said she was stupid. And she cast that voice to others, not to say it, but inside. So people could feel that criticism when they met her, which turned them off. So this is how the subconscious works. And unless you are attentive to every piece out there that says, ding, you need to pay attention. And it's hard to do alone. And that's why it's good to have a companion, a coach, a counselor, someone like me, walking with you. Um, It's not easy work, but it's freeing. So you get to experience that. All right. Any questions? Oh, I can stop the recording.
You did, didn't you?
No, I didn't.